customer is trying to pay for her goods. And it just made me feel so sad for the fact that this is happening here in this country and nobody is talking about it or putting into context what is going wrong. What is wrong?
Yeah, well, it's called the ghettoification of America. And if you listen to Gil Scott-Heron, one of the seminal street poets, spoken word geniuses of our era, you would know that this was coming. Basically, America doesn't want to deal with the fact that it's been abusive toward its minority population and put them into economically disadvantageous ghettos, which have led to drug use, heroin use, and all kinds of problems. And as a result of the necessary infrastructure of prisons to maintain the ghetto of America, primarily the black population, there's no more money left for the white population. So the ghettoification of America is spilling over now, and obviously you've got these two white women.
Well, that's what I want to say, okay, but the fact is, what I think is actually the problem relates to our first headline here.
Yeah.
And that is the copyright cartels, the sort of oligarchization of America. The fact that basically we have a Pablo Escobar-like situation. You and I covered it before on the tobacco trail, the carnage trail. Here, this town, Durham, North Carolina, was built on the tobacco industry, the cartel that the Duke family ran of the tobacco industry. Today, we have an opioid epidemic because of the cartels from Connecticut, the family in Connecticut that runs the opioid epidemic. But now this also, the fact that we have these oligarchies has basically led to a situation where not only are we pushing drugs on people, but there's no hope of ever rising, because here's a study, and this is from the New York Times, this headline, Myths of the 1%. What put people at the top? Dispelling misconceptions about what's driving income inequality in the U.S. So the study looks at all of the myths of what's causing inequality in the U.S., why the 1% owns 20% of all the wealth in the United States. And it basically, they look at all the other OECD nations, and by comparing the arguments, they can find out that it's not trade, it's not the rise of information technology, it's not about unions, and it's not about immigration either. Because if you look at other nations with more immigration or more trade or more IT than America, they don't have the same situation. And what they found is that it's actually basically the cartels or the government intervention in certain industries. And we'll go into that in specifics, but it's things like, the fact that to cut hair in the United States, you have to spend like $2,000 to get a license in many states just to have the right to cut hair. So barriers to entry have been erected all over the economy, all over through various services as well.
Right, the oligarchs, the wealth concentration, the bureaucratic concentration is sapping the economic vitality from this entrepreneurial nation called America, and the machinations and the costs associated therewith of keeping this huge prison population in place are draining money away from all aspects of society. And you've got the problems that you would normally associate with the ghetto, like people nodding out in the middle of the day, on the middle of the street, heroin nod, just nodding out. I lived in Harlem for 4 years, and I'm quite familiar with what happens to a community when it's run by heroin gangsters and what this does to folks. And now we're seeing it across every socioeconomic strata of America, because the same frickin' gangsters are running all of society, the same drug pushers and opiate pushers that we used to condemn in places like Harlem and other urban areas are now running economic policy in America. So we got a nation of freaking non-heroin addict down there at the convenience store, all jacked up, looking for a hit, and freaking crack whores are running everything in America.
Crack whores is jacked up. These people are just want to nod out because, this study, by the way, is by Jonathan Rothwell, and he's a senior economist at Gallup. And when you're talking about the 1980s, when Gil Scott-Heron was alive and kicking and offering his poetry to the world and explaining the situation of the ghetto, of America, of American society, of the B movie sort of ification of America. So, okay, you can't because of copyright cartels. You can't even do that. So the fact is that in 1980, the top 1% owned their share.
This shit is unreal.
11%. In 2014, it was 20%, and it's increased even more. No other nation in the 35-member Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, is as unequal among those with comparable tax data, and none have experienced such a sharp rise in equality. So what's going on? The Gallup economist looked, and he said that almost all of the growth in top American earners has come from just 3 economic sectors: professional services, finance and insurance, and healthcare. Groups that tend to benefit from regulatory barriers that shelter them from competition. Of course, we've talked about Obamacare. This is like part of the health cartel is right here behind us. Duke is like part of that whole cartel system of healthcare in America. But they have benefited from the regulatory barriers. Dean Baker, he's covered The Economist out of Washington, D.C. He's covered the fact that doctors, for example, you can't just, we can't import through immigration doctors because they need to get all the medical certification here in the United States. Even if they've been trained in France or Germany or the United Kingdom, anywhere in Europe, or Hong Kong or Singapore, great doctors, great healthcare systems there. They can't just come here and start offering services to Americans. They have to get, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get the certification required to practice here.
My sister Nell got bit by a rat.
Yeah.
And Whitey's on the moon. The revolution will not be televised. Ain't nothing but a B movie. The fact is, you've got regulatory capture. You've got the capture of these industries of the American economy, and they're beating the hell out of people every single day. This is like the Harvey Weinsteinization of the American economy, where everyone is just getting unmercifully violated 24/7 by these cartel, snot-nosed jerk-offs that are just...
Okay.
What?
So let's talk more sophisticated language here to offer better poetry than what you're doing here. So, so the groups that have contributed most to the 1% since 1980 are physicians, executive managers, sales supervisors, and analysts working in the financial sectors, and professionals in legal service industry, executives, managers, lawyers, consultants, and sales reps. So all the protected industries. Without the changes to these largely domestic service industries, finance, healthcare, and the law, the United States would look like Canada or Germany in terms of the top income shares. So again, remember, by the way, we're outside. You might hear some airplanes. You might see there's some Amtrak train going past by there. You might hear noises around us, just so you know. There's noises. But here, so you don't see, checkout counter staff driving across Germany on the Autobahn. You don't see people nodding off at the checkout counter there because, of course, they've got some dignity. They have hope. They have hope that, that the government's not going to prevent them from accessing the economy around them.
Right, you mentioned the government there is not going to allow for certain things. And of course, in America, there's a huge population that equates the government with something diabolical and evil, even though the government is the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The government is the what?
Yeah, well, that's right. I'm like nodding with you.
You're nodding with you.
But I'm not nodding off. I'm nodding agreement.
Oh, yes.
And however, here they are saying that the government in the United States is owned by specific groups of industries that are setting up regulatory barriers to anybody entering that system. That's why I think every millennial in the United States runs a coffee shop, because there's no cartel for coffee, apparently. But the problems, so they go through why these industries are protected and how they're protected. What they say is that the problems cited by these analysts include subsidies for the financial sector's risk-taking, overprotection of software and pharmaceutical patents, the escalation of land use controls that drive up rents in desirable metropolitan areas, favoritism toward market incumbents via state occupational licensing regulations, for example, associations representing lawyers, doctors, and dentists that block efforts allowing paraprofessionals to provide routine services at a lower price without their supervision. So the government is erecting barriers. I will nod agreement with that.
Well, look, here's the big secret. In America, there is no government. There are only corporations.
Yes, and we're actually going to talk about that soon. I want to talk about this Amazon headquarters, and this is very important that your cities, I mean, we are entering a neo-feudal corporate state for sure, and I think what we see with Amazon basically pitching for a second headquarters is pretty remarkable.
Right, as part of the deal, they are offered to actually run the government in these towns that they're pitching for. Much more about this coming your way. Don't go away. Right after the break.